A man remains in critical condition. This after officials say he was hit last night by a roller coaster at Kings Island.
It happened around 8 o'clock Wednesday night. Kings Island says Nelson was hit by the near 70-mile-per-hour ride known as the Banshee. Officials say he walked into a restricted area trying to retrieve his lost keys.
Witness saw a Young in the restricted area prior to the accident. The report also states that still pictures show Young in that restricted area. One witness told Fox 8 that they saw Young underneath the ride while they were on it. Police say they are continuing to investigate and talking to witnesses.
He was in a restricted area underneath the Batman roller coaster when he was struck by the leg of a 14-year-old girl seated on the front car of the ride. She now has a leg injury.
Okay, I think you get the idea. Well, this definitely wasn't on my bingo card for the year, but apparently a few days ago at Kings Island, at around 8 p.m. on June 20th, a 38-year-old male by the name of Antaro Nelson, he was struck by Banshee and then was immediately hospitalized in critical condition. And it wasn't until today, a few days later on June 24th, it was announced that he passed away from his injuries. A devastating ending for sure. I can't even imagine how his friends and family feel about the whole situation, but don't worry, I have the utmost sympathy for them. Losing a loved one is not easy. But with that being said, what I'm about to say next may sound a little harsh, but I don't have much remorse for Mr. Nelson, because despite this man losing his life, I can't overlook the fact that this incident was completely preventable. Mr. Nelson, through his own bad decisions, lost his life. It was not the fault of the park. It was not the fault of the employees. It was completely Mr. Nelson's choice, because he decided to hop an 8-foot-tall fence into the restricted area for Banshee for the sole reason to retrieve his keys. And unsurprisingly, when the ride was going through its course, the train came down and hit him. A bonehead decision that cost him everything. If you're wondering why he decided to jump the fence to retrieve his keys instead of just asking an employee to retrieve them, well, he did do that, but he didn't like the answer the employee gave him. According to some testimonial, he apparently did ask an employee if he can get his keys back. And of course, they just told him he had to wait till the end of the working day, which is very standard. They can't just stop the ride completely to retrieve one person's property. So I do not fault Kings Island for telling him that. The best outcome is that Mr. Nelson, he just waited for everything to close, and then the maintenance team can safely go in the ride area and grab his keys. But Mr. Nelson, he did not want to do that. He thought it would be more appropriate to scale the 8-foot-tall fence, walk in the restricted area all willy-nilly, grab his keys, and then, oh no, the train's coming, and it suddenly hit him. Now, currently there is no report on what his injuries were, but I can imagine most of his trauma was around his head, neck, or upper torso. Looking at how Banshee is a B&M invert, so the train goes below the track, meaning two scenarios could have happened. One, the metal bar under the seat could have struck Mr. Nelson, or scenario two, it was somebody's leg that hit him. I'm gonna say that scenario one was the most likely to have happened. There wasn't any report that someone broke their leg or was injured when they got off the ride, so it's likely that Mr. Nelson made contact with the undercarriage, which is the better scenario for the passengers on the coaster. They didn't have to get injured because of someone's recklessness, but since Mr. Nelson got hit by the undercarriage of the car, that was way worse for him, considering that a hard piece of metal attached to a 2 to 3 ton train traveling at 68 miles per hour is going to carry a lot of newtons of force. Quite frankly, I'm surprised he didn't die in impact. The sheer force that would be condensed to just his head, neck, or torso would have been instant lights out. So I'm assuming the train just grazed his body, which is why he was hospitalized until he unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. A sad situation for sure. The man did pass away, but now you can see why it was completely preventable. It wasn't some freak accident where the restraint popped open or two trains collided. It was just one guy who wasn't thinking straight, who jumped a fence and lost his life. Now, a proper conclusion to the story would be that people would learn that their bodies are not invincible. We are just flesh and bones and can easily get injured. However, I do think this incident will happen again, considering this is the 4th time someone jumped the fence to a B&M invert and get struck by the train. Hell, just 9 years ago at Cedar Point, someone hopped the fence to Raptor to grab their phone, and whack. If we go further back to 2008, this time at Six Flags Over Georgia, there 2 boys apparently hopped the fence to Batman because they were trying to skip the line, and as security was trying to escort them out, one of them once again got hit by the train. This time, it wasn't just a critical injury, it was decapitation. All because what? They didn't want to wait 2 hours to ride freaking Batman? Okay, so just don't go on the ride, and definitely don't jump the fence. And again, if we go back 10 years to 1998, at California's Great America, there was an incident on the ride Flight Deck, also a B&M invert. And who could have guessed? A guy jumped the fence. And it wasn't because he lost his phone or keys, it was because his wife lost her hat. A freaking hat. But in this particular instance, the trespasser wasn't the only victim. Remember how I said I was thankful that Mr. Nelson didn't cause anyone to break their leg or something? Well, on Flight Deck, that actually happened. When this guy tried to retrieve a hat, he wasn't struck by the coaster itself. No, he was fatally kicked. The person on the ride thankfully didn't die from internal bleeding, no, he just got a broken leg. But the trespasser who was on the receiving end of someone's foot died an hour later. All because he jumped the fence to retrieve a hat. A hat. That's just pathetic. Now, the point I'm trying to get across is that this Banshee incident, it's not isolated. For whatever reason, people, they keep jumping the fence time and time again because they don't feel like waiting to get their stuff. It's ridiculous. And why does it keep happening for B&M inverts in particular? Do trespassers feel more confident when it's an inverted coaster? Do they think that since the track is above them, there's going to be enough space between them and the train? Because, newsflash, there isn't. The clearance between the ground and the train is likely 3 to 4 feet. There's definitely not enough room for a full-size person, and even if there was, it doesn't matter. Don't put your life in jeopardy. If the fence and sign doesn't tell you to keep away, listen to your instincts. Don't do it. Does the park have to double their fence, add more signs, add spikes or barbed wire before people get the message? No matter how you spin the situation, it's clear that no matter what, people will do stupid things. So I do fear that after this incident, or hell, maybe even another incident, parks are going to begin to have more strict loose article policies because it'll be the only way for this to stop. If there's no phone to lose, there's no reason to jump over the fence. I hope it doesn't come to that, since it'll become a major inconvenience for everyone, all because a few people made a bad decision. Will this actually happen? Only time can tell, but that's all I can really say for the time being. I'm sorry if I sounded a little harsh in this video. I'm just irritated that this event happened over 4 times. It shouldn't have even happened once.